let's dive into a strange and honestly pretty uncomfortable truth. It's something psychologists have known about for decades, but it's not something you hear very often. Probably because, well, it kind of bruises the ego. And that truth is this really counterintuitive idea that the very thing you're most proud of, your intelligence, could actually be your single greatest vulnerability. And we're not talking about being naive or careless. No, this is something way deeper and a lot more systematic. So here's the core idea we're going to unpack. The smarter you are, the easier you might be to manipulate. Why? Because your brain is an incredible machine. It's amazing at building these rational, logical structures around information, but it does that even when the information is a carefully constructed lie. And manipulators, they know exactly how to exploit that. So how do they actually do it? Well, the first method is this kind of psychological judo move. It's called the over-justification trap. And this one is so subtle. It's designed to work best on the most analytical minds. The science here is just fascinating. Studies have shown that if you give people a really convincing but totally false explanation for something, it's often the most educated people who fall for it. You'd think they'd question it, right? But no. Their brains immediately get to work, building this intricate, logical scaffolding all around the bad idea to make it fit into their worldview. And here's the key, the really clever part. A skilled manipulator knows that you will do the heavy lifting for them. They don't just hand you a complete fabrication. That's way too easy to spot. No, instead, they give you a really compelling half-truth, and then they just sit back and watch as your own mind eagerly connects the dots and fills in all the missing pieces. And that is exactly why highly analytical people are often the very last to realize they've been duped. They've already built this entire intellectual fortress to defend the wrong idea. Their own logic becomes the very thing that traps them. And this trap, it often works hand in hand with the second one. Now, this next trap can be a little tough to hear because it targets a quality that we all see as a profound strength, our empathy. You see, intelligence and empathy are very often linked. But here's the thing. Manipulators don't see your empathy as a virtue. They see it as a doorway. The technique is called vulnerability mirroring. It could be a colleague, a partner, even a salesperson. And they present themselves as someone who just needs a little bit of understanding. They'll share this perfectly curated story of struggle, just enough to really activate your empathetic response. And you feel for them. You really do. And in that exact moment, your guard just drops. Now, this isn't some kind of character flaw on your part, it's just pure neuroscience. Our brains literally cannot be fully analytical and fully empathetic at the exact same time. They're like opposing states. So the manipulator's goal is simple. Keep you in that compassionate feeling state for as long as possible so your critical thinking never really gets a chance to kick into gear. And the data on this is just startling. Researchers at the University of Waterloo found that when they prime people to feel compassion, their ability to detect a lie dropped by over 30%. 30%. Just by getting you to feel for them, a manipulator can make you significantly less likely to see what's really going on. Okay, and that brings us to the third, and I think the most devastating trap of all. This one kicks in after you're already on board, making it so difficult to escape. It's called the sunk cost anchor. So a manipulator will get you to invest something small at first, maybe some of your time, your reputation, your energy, even just a tiny bit of money. But as soon as you're invested, this incredibly powerful cognitive bias kicks in. We are literally wired to believe that our past investments justify future commitment, even when all the evidence is screaming at us to cut our losses and run. Have you ever heard that little voice in your head? The one that says, "I've already come this far, I can't back out now," or, "Hey, I'm not an idiot, so this must be the right path." I want you to know that voice, that is not logic. That is your ego, and it is desperately trying to protect itself from having to admit it made a mistake. A good manipulator engineers that exact internal conflict. Okay, so that's the diagnosis. It sounds a little bleak, I know. But what's the defense? I mean, how do you protect yourself from this stuff without becoming totally cynical or paranoid? Well, it really comes down to 3 practical, totally actionable rules. Okay, rule number 1, the 24-hour audit. Anytime someone triggers a really strong emotional response in you, good or bad, just hit pause. Give it 24 hours before you make any big decisions. Number 2, trace the investment. When you find yourself passionately defending some idea or position, just stop and ask yourself, How much have I already put into this? Is it my logic speaking right now, or is it my ego? And finally, number 3, the outside voice test. Explain the situation out loud to a neutral friend. You don't even need their advice. You just need to hear how ridiculous or how reasonable it sounds when you actually say it. At the end of the day, the goal here isn't to shut down your empathy or to become some cold, distrustful person. It's about developing a new layer of awareness. It's about staying intelligent about your intelligence, knowing where it protects you and knowing where, if you're not paying attention, it can be quietly turned against you. So I'll just leave you with this question. Now that you know the playbook, the over-justification, the empathy exploit, the sunk cost anchor, where in your own life might your intelligence be working against you right now? Because knowing the trap, well, that's the first and most important step to avoiding it.